I'm Robert Cavuto, and today on Sonic Perspectives, we are speaking with legendary guitarist and one of my personal favorite guitarists, Steve Stevens of Billy Idol's band, to talk about their upcoming headlining spring tour. Steve, welcome. Thank you. I'm so excited to speak with you today.
Thanks, Robert. Same here. Same here. Thank you.
You know, before we talk a little bit about the tour, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about your two latest releases. So it seems like you and Billy have a new formula for releasing albums. You're doing 4 songs per EP, and you're releasing them every year. Tell me a little about that approach versus doing a full album.
Well, back in the day, when you do a full album, and then obviously, the machinery has to kick in, and the record company has to, figure out the artwork and the promotion and all of this, and distribution, getting the actual, because it used to be physical sales. So some songs, by the time your fans actually got to hear the music, some of the songs were written, up to a year and a half before that. So this is really refreshing for us because, you obviously, you get the music to the people much quicker. You get to really pick the best of the best. Right. We don't just go in with the intention of recording 4 songs. You record as many as you're inspired to do, and then you pick the best of the 4, and then maybe you'll come back to the other ones that maybe you haven't finished, or you'll use a bit from one and the other. So It's much more immediate, and things like current events and things in your life which are currently happening are much more pertinent to the music that's coming out, whereas before you think, oh well, I don't even feel that way about such and such subject anymore by the time the records come out. And we've really hit on this formula of working with some great producers who are now writers. More producers are writers now, and multi-instrumentalists, so you can go in with like a Butch Walker or Tommy English, Joe Janiak, and you can come up with songs much more quickly. And obviously with digital recording and stuff, you can move bits around and try ideas. It's a much more expedient process, and for us it's really gratifying.
I was going to ask you about that. So you go in with the mindset of you're going to do a full-on album and then just pick the best of the best. What's the
not necessarily a full album, but whatever it is that day. Sometimes you'll come up with a couple ideas that day, and we usually work for a couple of weeks on these EPs. So however many songs you have, and then you fit the ones, you put the ones that fit together.
Right. Well, I was going to ask you, what's the criteria? Do you have to have a rocker? Do you have to have a haunting ballad? Do you have to have a mid-tempo? So to get to those 4 songs, what do you got? What's the criteria that makes it onto a Billy Idol album?
There really is no rules. I think the one underlying theme was that the first EP that we did primarily with Butch Walker was a bit more introspective, and I think that was that we had started working on that just when COVID hit, and everybody's locked down, and people were very unsure about what the future held. Right. So we I think it was and Billy had lost his mom, and there was an emotional content to that EP. The second one, we were ready to break out, and that's how Cage came about. We were more the hell with COVID anymore. We're just going to rock and roll and put some big guitars back in the music. Whereas first one was it was more acoustic based, if I could say.
Yeah, no, I love the Cage. That's a fantastic EP. And I was wondering, was there any consideration, because you guys are famously known for doing remixes, was there any consideration to adding an extra song here or there, like a remix of something old that you made fresh?
Not in this current iteration, no.
Oh, okay, all right.
Yeah, and I mean, we did release an album of just remixes of classic Billy Idol tunes, and I think that we look at it as two entirely different projects, because the remixes, we just get the multi-tracks to people, remix engineers and guys who we like their work, and just have them go at it without any input really from us. It's, that's the idea of a remix, because you want somebody's different perspective on it.
Yeah, true. Yeah. Can we assume that you're working on a new EP for 2023?
Yeah, actually, we start Monday.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Do you guys start from scratch, or you got ideas already ready to go and you want to show Billy, and or you doing things
We've kind of trusted the process a bit more now, and we start from scratch because it's worked well for us. Back in the day, obviously you're in a recording studio that's costing $175 an hour.
Right.
You want to, we do pre-production with the band and come up with demos. I make my little 4-track demos and stuff. But now I don't, I'm more comfortable in just going in, bringing my guitar, and as being of service.
When you go into record an EP, do you have a strong sense of what a Billy Idol album should sound like in the current state? Or do you have the opportunity to explore different voices and different aspects, because knowing that it's Billy's voice and your guitar playing that's going to make it sound like Billy Idol, regardless of what type of song it is?
Yeah, it's not, that's the culmination of the two personalities, and that's
Yeah.
going to happen regardless. With the current producers, and we'll be back in with Tommy English, sometimes they're able to put a different slant on something. We purposely avoid repeating ourselves.
Yes.
Obviously when we go out on tour, we have a catalog of songs that are near and dear to people's hearts, and they've lived with some of these 40 years of career of us working together.
Yeah.
So the last thing we want to do is, when we sit down, let's write Rebel Yell Part 2. We avoid that. But the guys that we work with now are such fans to begin with, that they're able to take that energy and take how they felt when they first heard White Wedding or Rebel Yell or something,
Yeah.
and come at it with a new perspective, because they are quite from a different generation. And we're able to throw colors at the recording process and just say, hey, how about a little touch of the riff from of this or that, the feeling that you get, not necessarily the same notes or chords or anything, but it's more about the feeling.
No, he does a tremendous job, and I think you guys really come up with great stuff. When it comes to guitar playing, you've always been a less is more kind of guy, a minimalistic, almost like The Edge and Andy Summer. That minimalistic approach to songwriting may sound easy, but I think it's quite complicated. Would you agree with that? It's not easy to do something that's just simple and make it sound great.
You have to be a fan of the song and the singer to begin with, and obviously after so many years working with Billy, I fully understand what I should be bringing to the table.
Mm-hmm.
It's where you put your energies. I think when you're younger, you want to eat up all the notes, and you want to play Pac-Man on the guitar, but I think as you mature, I care much more about the message of the song and the intent and the lyrics. I'm one of those guitar players, even if I'm working outside of Billy Idol, I want to see the lyrics, because that's my roadmap.
Yeah.
I'm not, I need to convey the story that whoever the singer is. And I'm a fan of songs. I've always been. It's few and far between guitar instrumental music that I find interesting. When a guitarist does instrumental music that I find interesting, they're usually the cream of the crop, and I don't even think about the technique involved.
Wow.
But I love the process, and I love the collaboration. That's the thing. You can be a great basketball player, a great football player, whatever. But I sense that when you win a Super Bowl or something, it's obviously it's team effort, and the star quarterback is not hugging himself. He's hugging his teammates. He's going, man, I threw the last ball, and you caught it, and it's it's great to collaborate with people.
No, that's great. It sounds like you're really there to serve the song, not necessarily showboat.
I try to. I mean, there's always a moment for that, when
Yeah.
when the song calls for a guitar solo or something, and I've got 16 bars, I'll do something, but it has to fit the song, it can't just be like, hey, here I am now, it's
Yeah.
like, it's got to be something. Yeah, I usually, take my cue from the vocal melody and then take it off from there.
You do it so well. And you really add a sonic dimension to the songs, and you really blur the lines between a keyboard and a guitar. And
Mm.
it's really quite fascinating and frustrating to a guy that's trying to listen to it and figure out what you're doing. Is that the keyboard? Is that the guitar? So how do you know when to add and how do you know when to remove?
Um, well, I think certainly with Rebel Yell, I was adamant that I was going to do everything instead of the keyboard because, we started that record 83,
Mhm.
84. And, everything had tons of keyboards on it, all the, quintessential 80s records. And I remember, I'd buy the latest Queen record and I'd see, liner notes, all sounds derived from guitar. And Brian May
Right.
was brilliant at orchestrating that. And I remember saying to our producer, Keith Forsey, give me the opportunity to at least do what a keyboard would be doing, but let me do it on my guitar first. And if I don't achieve it on the guitar, then bring in the keyboard player. But I'd rather it, derive from the guitar. And now with digital recording, you can manipulate guitars in such a way that they don't even resemble the guitar. And now with our touring band, we have an additional guitarist in Billy Morrison, so
Yeah.
I can orchestrate my parts and know that they're going to be reproduced live.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, and you do it so well. With so many guitars to choose from, I know you're a huge guitar fan, and I've watched so many of your YouTube videos. When it comes time to record, how do you know which one to use for what song?
I've always told people that I could literally go in and do an entire record on two types of guitars,
Really?
a Les Paul Gibson style guitar
Mhm.
and a Fender Stratocaster, because between the two, guitars have not really deviated much from those two. The
Yeah.
Stratocaster started as a surf instrument, very clean, chimey. It's very much I would say the Strat is more of a soloist's guitar. It's very
Mhm.
lyrical, and with the manipulating the tremolo bar and all that, you can really uh, make you can get a lot of humanity out of a Stratocaster. A Les Paul is more like meat and potatoes for me. It's more the backbone of the track.
Yeah.
So I usually, and most of my guitars are, I have a signature guitar with nags, which is
Right.
very much in the Gibson, school of things. And then now we have another nags that's kind of more the Strat or super Strat with a, locking tremolo on it. And to be honest, most of the recordings I do these days are with those two guitars or an acoustic. And with acoustic, it's either a good steel string or a nylon string, which I love. I love classical and flamenco, and
Yeah, I know.
so I find it really easy to express myself on a nylon string guitar.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Is there a particular guitar that influences you the most when you're coming up and writing songs?
As long as it stays in tune. The one that stays in the best. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the song, if it has quieter sections, or it's more of a, I hate to use the ballad word, but something like that. I gravitate towards acoustic because the human voice and an acoustic guitar, I mean, it's tried and true from Blowing in the Wind to, Stairway to Heaven, and, that combination. And I grew up, when I started playing guitar was the folk era of, James Taylor and Joni Mitchell
Wow.
and Crosby, Stills, Nash. And so I started when I was, I got serious playing guitar when I was 8, and I didn't get an electric guitar till I was 13. So I have that foundation of acoustic. So I'm always the one, trying to shove my acoustic playing into the music, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
That's fascinating. I didn't know that about you. You came from that folky background, or you started off back then like that. I would have thought you'd been like a Jimi Hendrix type of guy, like Jeff Beck too.
Not until I got an electric guitar at 13. Yeah, it was all I grew up in New York in Rockaway, and there was a very famous protest singer named Phil Oakes from Rockaway, and his sister was my first guitar teacher. So I started off playing things like Pete Seeger, and really a lot of blues things. I was really impressed with things like John Fahey and Reverend Gary Davis. A lot of blues stuff, because it's kind of rudimentary, and as a kid starting, if you got your first guitar back then, it's very different now, but if you got your first guitar back then, you damn well couldn't play Purple Haze on an acoustic guitar. It just wasn't going to happen. That's why so many of us from my generation love Zeppelin, because Page was always, every record had a bunch of acoustic things on it, and even when he played electric, you could play them on acoustic. You can play a Whole Lot of Love on an acoustic guitar. It's still going to sound like a Whole Lot of Love. So yeah, that mixture of folk, and then I stumbled upon a flamenco guitar teacher, and I fell in love with flamenco music.
That's pretty intuitive for such a young age too. That's not what normal people would gravitate towards, the blues and acoustic guitar. I remember when I was a kid, my parents, I wanted to play guitar. They said, here's an acoustic. And I said, no, I want that red electric one. They said, well, learn how to play this, and then you could go to that. And I had no interest. And it wasn't until I was older and I was able to buy my own guitar that I went out and got an electric and learned how to play on the electric guitar, because that was the music I was listening to.
Sure, yeah. Well, I have a brother who's 5 years older than me, and as a little kid, all I wanted to do was hang out with my brother and his friends, because they were cool.
Yeah.
They smoked pot,
and that's what they were listening to, right?
And whatever my brother was listening to was
that makes sense.
Was a lot of that, and he was really into the folk scene. And we would go into the city, and I got to see John Fahey. That's one of the first concerts I saw, which also culminated in my love of electronics, because my dad used to build his own stereo system and stuff like that, and he brought home this record called Moog, and it was excuse the guy's name, his name was Dick Hyman. But it's a great record, and me and my dad heard this thing, and now he's really into building his home stereo, and then suddenly there's this instrument that's got these frequencies that no other records had. And he says, "Hey, what do you think of this?" And I go, "What is that, Dad?" He opens up, it's called the Moog, and then so I don't remember what year this was, maybe 67, 68, and then lo and behold, I'm listening to the radio, and Lucky Man comes on, the first Emerson, Lake and Palmer.
Yes.
I go out and buy it, and I say to my dad, that's that instrument you were talking about. This guy's playing it, and so it was, I was bitten by the early synth thing.
Right.
I loved bands that had, cool keyboards in them, and just as I got my electric guitar was the dawn of, the good progressive rock stuff, which I'd say lasted up till about 73, 74. And I went and saw all those prog rock bands, and also, they had guitar players who were using a little bit of classical, a little bit of flamenco stuff that I had in my back pocket, but they were putting it into a rock band format, whereas before that, certainly Eric Clapton wasn't utilizing any of that stuff. So I kind of, my musical mind was kind of blown.
Yeah, I could see that.
Wow, synths and classical guitar, I'm in.
So that's kind of your fusion, so to speak, where and then you interpret it, and then you all of a sudden have the sound for what became Billy Idol's music. So that's kind of
very much so. And then with the energy of punk rock, growing up in New
Right.
York and I
Throw
went to
that
the
in,
high
yeah.
school. Yeah, I went to high school performing arts in Manhattan. And so I was aware that this little scene was starting to happen. Max's was already there, but it was kind of, the heyday of Max's had kind of passed a little bit. But then there was a resurgence with, kind of the new, what they call new wave or whatever. And
Right.
then CBGBs was going and all these bands were happening. And then Robert Fripp moves to New York and embraces a lot of these bands. So it's really like, it's great environment for music, really great environment.
Tremendous melting pot. I get it.
Really
Talk
true.
to me
Yeah.
about like that idea of the simplicity of the acoustic guitar and by just what's behind you, all these gadgets that you have. What's the point of like leaning too heavily on the gadgets and technology? Is there a balance of striking that balance when you bring it to Billy Idol?
I don't really concern myself with that. It either works or it doesn't. And when it doesn't work against a song, it's blaringly obvious. And you go, let's move on. Let's try another approach. And there's no harm in being wrong. I always tell guitar players to,
Right.
I don't know if that's being humble or whatever, but don't assume that you know everything about. It's taken, everything about everything, because it's taken me many, many years to make a lot of mistakes, both musically and recording wise, to learn what not to do. I mean, that's how
Right.
you get good. You don't just come out of the box going, I know it all, man. But I will say that a lot of this equipment is very redundant in that, all this gear was bought before I had any digital recording. And I would say that, I use a couple of good mic pre's, but the rest of the stuff sits there dormant because it's all
Wow.
done. It's done in the computer now,
Right. Right.
and it's getting better and better. And
And more
number of
condensed, right? You could take it all
yeah,
with
yeah,
you.
exactly. When I go to write, I live in Vegas, and I go to Los Angeles to work with Billy, and I usually bring a couple of guitars and my laptop, and that's I still keep all of my vintage amps in LA, and that's what I record with. There's something the combination of vintage guitar gear, old pedals, analog amplifiers, tube amplifiers being captured digitally. To me, that's the best of both worlds.
Yeah, and that's kind of what it leads me to my next question regarding your tour. So you have a North American run of dates in spring, and when you're going out there to play, how do you get the vintage sound from those earlier albums? Is that all done with some sort of computer, or is that like amps that you're getting the vintage sound?
I'll turn this around. I'll show you this still. I don't know if you can see. It's all my
Yeah, I can see it.
amplifier. Right. So yeah, that's what it is. Still amplifiers, tubes. We bring out I have a signature amp with Friedman amplifiers, and we just came out with the latest version of that. And I'm really selfish because I've got a company like Nags building me my guitar of my dreams. I mean, I look at it like this is what I need, and if other people want that and like what I do, they're going to buy it. But it may not be for everyone. But I just get people to build the shit that I need.
Yeah.
I never think of it. That's why they're expensive, because I don't sacrifice. I will not sacrifice with guitars or amplifiers, because that is those are the important elements for me. And I grew up in my ear. I'm hearing all those classic records. It's still, the records that you grew up with from the time you're probably 11 till about 14 are embedded in your brain DNA, and that's your reference point. And if you think about all those albums that I listened to from them, Zeppelin, Jeff Beck, Yes, or even the Stooges, or what, they're all great guitar sounds. And there's a connection between the guitar and a great tube amplifier that's not been replicated. I mean, it can be captured, and it can be made expedient and more easy to replicate You know, I use plugins and all that kind of stuff. But when it comes time to tour or recording, I'm going to use the real thing.
The real thing. Oh, wow. That's
Because it's because you got to live with that for the rest of your life. You know?
Yeah, and it's got to sound right, and you got to be happy
Yeah,
with it. That's the
that's
end of
right.
the day.
Yeah.
No, that's interesting. You know, you talked about Nags. Love your signature guitars. I've seen you. My favorite one is that red sparkle one.
Yeah.
That is, I've seen you a bunch of times playing with that. That's fantastic. How
Yeah.
many guitars do you typically take out? Because when I was watching you, you almost had a guitar for every song.
Right. Well, obviously, you know, after a 40-year career of making records with Billy, I want to replicate all of the sounds and make them true to the record. So that requires some different guitars. And I do a nylon guitar solo during the show. So I bring my Godin. I have a couple of Godin steel strings and a nylon string guitar. And Godin is I think it's my longest guitar endorsement ever. It's going on like 25 years now. And I love the company and I love what they do. I try it, you know, you try and I try and bring as few instruments as I can because, you know, it takes up space in the truck and then you got to think about how many trucks you're bringing and how much gas that's, you know, touring is about dollars and dollars and cents these days. And you try and, you know, I mean, always our, you know, stage managers, do you really need that? You know, so yeah, I do. So, but I think typically I'll bring 10 guitars.
Oh, that's a lot. Yeah.
Then you want some backups, you know, if a certain one goes down that another one can't fill in for, you need a backup of that. I bring 3 amp heads with me because I play in stereo and one's a backup. I don't use guitar cabinets live anymore. I'm now working with a company called Two Notes. And what we did is we had a session where we digitally captured all of my guitar cabinets dating back to 1977. And now you can do that. And you can, what convinced me was that I was putting guitar cabinets off the stage to keep the sound levels down. So it wouldn't, you know, guitar wouldn't bleed into the vocal mics, all this kind of stuff. Well, you do a festival gig and you got these cabinets off stage, they're getting moved and the mics are getting moved and it's not consistent every night. So I started using, you know, speaker captures with these Two Notes units. It's the same every night. And we, you know, I was pessimistic, but I did an A/B. I went out in the front of house with my engineer and we both listened to the live cabinet mic'd up perfectly compared to the capture of the speaker. And in a live situation, the capture sounded better. Wow. And anything that we were missing, possibly we could compensate for at the board and bring in some frequencies, but it's the same every night. So it's consistent. Yeah.
No. You know,
and I don't have to lug around all these cabinets and make my road manager happy now.
Yeah, that one less truck.
That is exactly it. Yeah.
You know, has there been discussion about the set list, what you're going to be playing from the Cage on this, you know, this tour?
I think on the last tour we did about 3 songs from the Cage. We always have spots in the set where we flip songs. One night we'll play one night we'll play the other, but obviously Cage we play because it's the title of the, you know, and then you know, we did a couple from the previous EP, the Roadside, and you know, when we do like a residency in Vegas, we know that a lot of the, you know, the ticket buyers are going to be there for multiple shows. We usually do 3 a week, so we vary the set as much as possible.
Yeah. How about I know Billy Idol fans typically want to hear the hits. They're there to hear the hits, but is there any consideration, I guess, to playing some deep cuts like Dead Next Door or All Summer Single? Is that an option for you guys?
We do. I mean, what's cool about it now is that some of the songs that we weren't able to pull off live in the 80s because of technology, now you can do them. But we'll approach them the way that we are now. You know, as you know, so we'll update them in a way, you know, we did Soul Standing By was a song that we did.
Yeah.
I remember suggesting it to Billy, and he went, "Oh, you know, that never really worked in the past." I said, "Well, we can make it work now." And but we you know, and also having two guitarists in the band, we can fill it out a bit more and kind of, we don't have to replicate it exactly the way it is on the record, but we keep the spirit and then update it a little bit. So we try and dig into some of the deeper cuts in the set list. Yeah.
I had an interesting question, but I think you may have answered it already for me. Is a few years back, you did the acoustic tour. And for a person who's on the albums that I'm listening to is very entrenched in effects and distortion, what was it like for you to get up there so clean with an acoustic guitar? Was it a little bit like being naked? You couldn't hide behind certain aspects. It had to be dead on.
I mean, fortunately, I'd say that, you know, 90% of the songs that Billy and I have written usually start on acoustic guitar. It's just two guys in a room or with our producer or whatever, and sit around and go, hey, because if you can make it work on acoustic, you know, you've got a tune.
Yeah.
If you have to rely on all this other, you know, whiz bang stuff, then maybe the song is not really there. But so we just kind of went back to, well, I went back to how I approached the song initially. A lot of times I'll do, with the benefit of my folk background, I could do some finger picking interplay between, so I can do like White Wedding, I can play the bass note, you know, as well as the spaghetti Western theme. So I kind of approach it differently. I approach it as though, I think I approach it as though I'm the guitarist and the bass player in one. So, and I have some pedals that help me. I have like an octave pedal that I can bring in to give a lower octave in certain sections. I do use effects. I have a Godin guitar synth where I can add strings and things like that. Some songs are really challenging. I remember the first time, you know, I'll backtrack a minute. The way that acoustic tour happened was Billy was promoting his book, and I was asked to accompany him on some of these promotions and play acoustic guitar. And so it gave him an opportunity to speak about the songs and how they came together and some of his life stories. And it really was great. And management said, would you consider doing a whole set like that? We said, oh, well, let's try it. We booked ourselves into a little theater, like 200 people in Los Angeles. And, you know, I was thinking, well, I don't have to run around. It's going to be, you know, I'll be able to kind of sit on a stool and, you know, do this. And I think that set was like an hour, 10 minutes. Well, we came off soaked in sweat because it's a whole different skill set. And it was work for both of us, because not only is he having to sing, he's having to entertain in between and tell stories. And it's like, so we work damn hard on those acoustic shows. It's gratifying, but we're like, at the end of the show, we're like, damn, you know, can't rely on the drummer to carry us. And you know, I have to keep the rhythm going. So it's challenging, but we enjoy doing it. So, and it gives the fans a totally different perspective.
Yeah, a different depth into what you guys do and different breadth of it. Are you going to take that approach, maybe a song or two for this tour that's coming up?
We always do acoustic stuff.
I know you do your solo acoustic with the flamenco song.
Right, yeah, we do a Spanish guitar version of Don't Need a Gun, which on paper looks like it would be entirely wrong because it's kind of an electronic song. But we did it on Storytellers, and I just had this idea, the rhythm of it. I remember saying to Billy, you know, I had seen Paco de Lucia, the great flamenco player. And I said, you know, he gets this rhythm going. And I said, you know, Don't Need a Gun's like that. And he kind of said, yeah, all right, you know, I'm willing to, you know, once we got into rehearsal and started it, it's been a really cool aspect. So we do that, and then there's a couple of other acoustic things we do, and you know, a couple of ballad things. Ghost in My Guitar was one of those songs that you know, is an acoustic based thing. You know, we always look at the dynamics of our set and usually have peaks and valleys and things, and the
Yeah.
valleys are usually occupied by acoustic based stuff.
Don't Need a Gun always takes me back to Miami Vice. That haunting guitar, the haunting vocals, it just instantly takes me back to being a kid. And yeah, what a great song that is. I do have to ask, how did you miss New York and New Jersey for this tour then?
Oh, that's not up to me. Believe me, I love playing. I grew up in New
I
York,
know.
and I love playing there, and I love the city and the energy of it. But
Yeah.
I mean, fortunately, we're getting to go down to Florida, which we haven't done in a long time.
Okay.
It's logistically, you have to route a tour so that the financials work, so that you have other venues around
Right.
a city. And I think, we'll definitely hit New York at some point again.
Good.
But I think just the way the routing worked on this tour.
So I
Just
live in New
it wasn't.
Jersey, central Jersey, and I was looking, I was map questing how far. I was like, oh, I think the closest one was 5 hours. I was like, oh, I can't do 5 hours of driving. That's a
Right.
lot of
Yeah.
driving.
Yeah.
I'm hoping you come.
I apologize to
Oh,
the fans that when we don't get to play places. And yeah, but for me, I love playing in New York because
yeah.
it is still my I still consider it my hometown, and there's, like I said, it's an energy there. And it's really near and dear to, Billy and I, because we met in New York and we recorded some of our classic records there. And I have, friends, a lot of friends that are still in New York I like to see.
Well, I do hope that maybe down the road, not this tour, another tour, you come to New York, New Jersey, and I could come down, see you guys, take some more pictures. But you're such an entertaining guitar player.
Oh, thanks.
It's not only the music, but you're entertaining the fans constantly when you put the guitar behind your back.
Yeah.
I love that stuff. You're playing with your mouth. That's cool too. So,
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I grew up in an era where the guitar players were I mean, I hadn't seen anything from like Song Remains the Same in quite a while, the 1973 Led Zeppelin concert from Madison Square Garden. And I saw something, and I go, God, I forgot what a great showman Jimmy Page was, how he conveyed those guitar parts through his body language and stuff. And certainly, all my favorite guitar players were they were entertaining.
yes.
I think that's an important part of it. You have to make, as a guitar player, you have to make what you do musically and visually enjoyable to people who have no idea what the hell a guitar is about.
Right.
It's an important part of it. And I remember I had a manager at one time, a guy named Mike Quashie. He was on the Ed Sullivan Show as the king of the limbo. Well, he actually lived in Jimi Hendrix's apartment and had some of Jimmy's scarves, and he was really a part of the whole New York scene. And friends, he actually, when Zeppelin played in New York, he would come down the aisle at the intro he was from Trinidad with the, Trinidad drums and all this.
Yeah.
And, he was really flamboyant. But he said to me, as a manager, he started talking, and I didn't quite understand this. He just starts talking about body shape and all of this, and talking about Jimmy Page and Jimi Hendrix and how they took the notes, and it wasn't just about here, it was in the body, and how everything about them. And he was really into how you presented as a guitar player, musically, what was happening, and if to your whole aura and your whole. That's what Hendrix was about. It was dangerous and sexy and technical, and he was the whole package. And he was psychedelic, but yet he had the roots of bluesmen from 20 years before him. And he was the whole thing. And I grew up in that era of I can't not do that when I'm on stage. Plus, I got to look over at Billy Idol, and I mean, that guy's out there. He's one of the great frontmen of all time, and I'm inspired by that. And I go, yeah, man, I gotta I got to rise to
game.
the occasion because look at that guy.
Well, you're very charismatic when you do it. And the windmills, you know, when you're doing the windmills, that's huge. And that's, man, that just brings you in. And that's just like, wow, that is so cool to watch when you're doing the windmills on the guitar.
Yeah, I've ripped off the best.
Well, listen, I want to thank you so much for your time today. And I wish
My
you the
pleasure.
best
Yeah.
on tour, safe travels. And I love the new album.
Great. Yeah.
Yes, I can't say enough great things about it. And
Yeah, I love it too. I mean, that's the bottom line. I love what we've done, and you know, if I was a Billy Idol fan and I was a Steve Stevens fan, I'd like that record.
Yeah.
You know,
It's
So,
funny.
yeah.
It's short, and it's like, you know, you put it on and you're listening to it, and I guess I was able to really delve into all the songs because I would hear them so repetitively, and I would hear different nuances of your playing, different
Mhm.
lyrics maybe I missed before. So it was kind of like on repeat, and it was really entertaining, and actually hearing it all at different times and hearing different aspects of it. And it was fascinating from that point. It never got boring just hearing those 4 songs. I like
Great, great. Yeah, I think, you know, records got very long in the 90s. You know, you had 15 songs on a
Yes.
record, and I'd have to like plan out the listening sessions, you know. And then by then, you know, I came, you know, from a time when some records were, you know, 35, 40 minutes and side you know, because they were you know, pressed on vinyl, so your volume levels had to decrease as the, you know, as the grooves got smaller towards the middle. So
Wow.
you structured your records that way. So if you notice on records, on vinyl records, when they were intended for vinyl, the first song on side A and side B is always the loudest.
Really?
You know,
No,
it's
I
the
never did.
rocker.
I
Yeah.
never did.
And then they usually had like you know, as the, you know, that's why we put Dead Next Door as the last track on Rebel Yell, because we knew the grooves were going to be so small. Let's put that on there, you know. So yeah, you had to
I had no
cut.
idea. I had absolutely no
Yeah.
idea that
I
even.
mean, it's gotten better. Vinyl sounds better now, but
Yeah.
yeah. So you know, I mean, you know, I have a short attention span when it comes to records. Give me 9 songs. That's, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Steve. I really enjoy talking with you all the time. You're so insightful.
My
It was a
pleasure.
fascinating interview, and I'm gonna try and figure out how to get to see you maybe on this tour. Figure something out and take a road trip. So I hate to miss.
Well, where do you live?
Central Jersey, kind of by
What?
Morristown. You've played out
Okay.
by Morristown, the Mayo Center, a couple of times.
Right. Yeah. I played so many clubs in Jersey. When I
Yeah.
was in a cover band, I started, you know, I played that same circuit as Twisted Sister. And
Yes. Yes.
I used to go see a lot of bands, and I saw Missing Persons in Jersey. And then my cover band opened for the Plasmatics
Oh wow.
at a club in Jersey. I mean, you know, we played the whole tri-state area. So, yeah, I know it well.
I was in a cover band myself, doing Iron Maiden, Motley Crue, Judas Priest,
Mhm.
things like that. And we used to go see we used to go see Twisted Sister at
Yeah.
Hole in the Wall, the Soap Factory,
Yep.
places like that. You know, and I would sneak in. I was only like 18, drinking age was 21, so I'd have to get the
Yep.
fake ID and try and sneak in to see
Say,
Twisted
Hey
Sister.
man, yeah. I was in my first cover band. I was 17, so they had to sneak me in the back because yeah, one couple of club owners. All right, as long as you don't drink, sure, I won't drink. You
Yeah.
know,
They would have to lie to get me in and say, no, he's not in the band. He's just helping us unload the equipment. And then
right.
I'd sneak in the back room and I would kind of sit there and it wasn't
Yeah,
about the
yeah.
drinking for me or anything like that. It was about being on stage and playing. And that's kind of what I was.
Absolutely, yeah.
Well,
Good
well, thank you
times.
so much,
All right,
Steve. It's a pleasure
all right.
speaking.
All the best to
Thank
you.
you.
Yeah.
Have a great day.
Okay.
Bye.
Yeah, you too. Bye bye.